Good day, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. A United States judge has blocked Trump from deploying National Guard troops into Oregon as well as California, calling his orders overreach. Finally, Israel and Hamas geared up for ceasefire negotiations in Egypt and hopes of halting the war in Gaza. We'll talk more about that as well. French Prime Minister Sebastian Lecornu resigns after less than a month, plunging France deeper into political chaos. India launches a push to lure back top talent at U.S. H-1B visa policy becomes unpredictable. Bravo for India for getting your top talent back. Rite Aid officially closes every store across the United States following bankruptcy, a retail casualty. And we're also going to get to all the 2,600 stores that are closing around the United States. So a federal judge delivered a stunning rebuke to the Trump administration, blocking the president from deploying the National Guard or any state guard into Oregon or California without their consent. Trump's planned ways to use guard troops to support federal operations during protests and crackdowns. But this ruling frames it as an unconstitutional overreach into states' rights. And this decision is not only halts immediate deployments, but signals that even in times of unrest, the presidential power has limits. It's a direct clash between federal authority and state sovereignty. And this has been quite some time that the federal judges have yet to stop Trump in any of the changes of any of the moves that he's made. So now it seems that some judges are not agreeing with President Trump and now are pushing back and halting and stopping a lot what people believe on the right is progress. Now, granted, here on Blacklogic, we don't take the right or the left. We just stick with the truth. So again, has there been some sort of federal overreach? According to federal judges, in some regards they have, and they're aiming to stop it. Now, after weeks of brutal fighting, Israel and Hamas are preparing for negotiations in Cairo under Egypt's mediation because, when they had it in Qatar, they bombed the area where the Hamas leaders were. So now they moved it to Egypt. The first real movement toward a Gaza ceasefire in months. And that's not necessarily true, according to the reports, because they've been trying to do a ceasefire deal for quite some time. But at every single term, Israel has found a way to revoke or to dismantle any peace negotiations that them and Hamas was trying to have. Now, these talks are expected to focus on prisoner exchange, humanitarian aid, which people stating that Israel was rendering to the Gazans, but again, they stopped a whole fleet of 40 vessels of Greta Thunberg and a lot of her, people who was with her crew, trying to render aid to those Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And also, there's going to be a phased cessation of hostilities, but the distrust in these negotiations and these ceasefire deals is very, very high, because the humanitarian crisis deepens and regional actors from Qatar to the U.S. are pressuring both sides to compromise. And this could be a turning point or just another photo op that goes nowhere. The stakes couldn't be higher. This has been going on for a very long time. And some people say, well, it's only been going on for 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking over 60,000 Palestinians died, killed. And when we look at the tape, they say that originally there was only reports of 15 to 20,000 Hamas fighters. So even if you subtract, let's say 15,000, maybe there's 5,000 left, you're still talking about 45,000 people being killed due to this war. So again, we hope that these ceasefire deals go through and that there is nothing that abruptly comes about that ends these ceasefire deals. And the reason why I say that is because it seems though at every turn, Israel has come up with a reason not to continue or not to sign a ceasefire or a peace agreement to stop this war and to basically start renovating and rebuilding Gaza. So definitely I'll keep you guys updated with that, because there's a lot of peace talks that are kicking off. And then we get a little bit deeper into the story. I just want to point out a couple of things here. Now, one of the ceasefire agreements is that Hamas basically lay down their weapons. It states here that Israel's stated goal throughout the war has been the destruction of Hamas, basically eradicating Hamas from the governmental standpoint to each and every last terrorist fighter. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has repeatedly stated that he will not stop until the group is finished, kaput, annihilated. A key point in Trump's plan requires the group to disarm, but Hamas has previously refused to lay down its weapons, saying it would not only do so once a Palestinian state has been established, basically recognizing a government that they put together. Now, in response, Hamas made no mention of disarmament, fueling speculation that it has not changed its position. Over the weekend, Netanyahu vowed Hamas would be disarmed and Gaza would be demilitarized, either the easy way or the hard way. So that means more murder, death, kill, more war, in my opinion. Because he's not looking for Hamas just to lay down their guns and walk away. He seems as though he's trying to annihilate, eliminate, and kill each and every Hamas member and fighter. Okay. Now, here's the part where the U.S. government plays a role. It states here that the plan states that Hamas will have no future role in Gaza, which will be governed by a temporary transitional body of Palestinian technocrats. As soon as I heard the word technocrats, I knew what would be coming next, ladies and gentlemen. Supervised by a board of peace headed and chaired by Donald Trump and involve a former UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair. No. This is not right. Because far too long, America, we have sticking our nose in other people's businesses, and it seems as though we are always the ones who are trying to be the governing body of implementing and installing a democracy state of all these other countries. And we pick fall men. What I mean by that is that we pick people who will align with U.S. democracy goals, U.S. democracy laws, U.S. democracy legislation. Those people, when we call upon them to give up resources, when we call upon them to do a certain thing, a favor, they will do it. We don't need anyone in place that will coincide and align with America. Why am I saying that? We want people to govern themselves in the way that their culture and tradition should be. Now, if they have people who believe there's a good deal on the table with America, then so be it. But we're ahead of the table. We're like, you know what? We believe that you are a good fit for the Palestinian new government. We believe that you are a good fit and a good role for the new Palestinian government. Ladies and gentlemen, we have thousands of historical records where Western European powers and America has established a governing body of states and countries, and they've always been aligned with the American government, aligned with the Western powers and the governments therein. There has never been true representation that are for the people of their country and may not do every deal with Western powers as well as America. So what am I saying? That the people, however they go about forming a voting bloc, however they go about trying to decide how Palestine moves ahead, this is just my conjecture, that they should have some sort of vote that they can put together that is safeguarded, maybe by troops in the area that get other Muslim states involved for the security, or just the United Nations altogether. But the Palestinian people should pick their own leaders. The Palestinian people should pick their own government body, not America, not Donald Trump. Now, some people say, well, this is just temporary. Let me tell you this. I don't know what temporary is when it comes to government. Is that 2 years? Is that 4 years? Is that establishing, a true democracy state, or however they would like to run? Maybe it's a democracy, maybe it's a republic, maybe it's a dictatorship, however they want to run their country. But if you notice, anytime that America gets involved, anytime that European powers get involved, they always want to establish a democracy. Even though, according to our Constitution here in America, we live in a republic. So again, that is why I'm somewhat against that. I'm not saying that it may be all bad, but just given historical records, it's been bad. because we're controlling all these other countries because we are the ones who are putting in place people who are going to play nice with America. Yeah, we should want other countries to play nice with us, but there must be a deal on the table for them in order to do so. Not as just picking henchmen that we believe would do anything that America, anything that the UK says they're going to do. That's where I'm at. Now, in France, Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has resigned after less than a month in office, citing personal reasons. But insiders point to a fractured government and intense pressure from both the left and the right. And Lecornu, he was seen as President Macron's stabilizer, brought to unify a splinter parliament. Now, instead, his resignation plunges France into deeper political chaos, with opposition parties circling and the far right surging in polls. Now, France's crisis could seem ripple into the EU policy and stability. And the way I look at this, I wonder if this prime minister, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, France doesn't have a vice president. They only have a president and a prime minister, okay? And that's somewhat different. I'll touch on that just in a little bit here. But I wonder if Prime Minister Sébastien, he got into the office and he was just like, something's not right. I don't know if it's the allegations that President Macron's alleged wife is actually a male or born a male. Could that be it? Or did he find out there's demons in the closet and he just don't want to be any part of it? Because think about everything that this prime minister went to get in that position. The second highest office in France. Okay, Americans, we say France, but in France, they say France. Okay, oui. But anyway, I know a little bit of France. Comment allez-vous, yeah. I know a little bit of it, but nonetheless, I wonder what did he see? I wonder what did he hear? I wonder what did he experience to hold the second most highest position in France and then a month later step down. You know how sometimes you get a new job, you are on a 30 to 60, sometimes even 90-day chopping block. That's what I call it. This to see if you can fit in, this to see if you're a good job fit, just to see if you're knowledgeable as you were in your interview, right? You're kind of in this critical position where in that 30 to 90-day period, they can kind of let you go without cause, even though a lot of states nowadays are at will. They can just come in and fire you, but I digress. But I wonder what this prime minister actually saw. I wonder what he actually heard. I wonder what he actually, when he dove into the law or what France was looking like economically or socially or the government body of France. I wonder what in the hell made this prime minister, after 1 month, step down. And France is once again in political turmoil behind it. So as I was telling you guys that the president and the prime minister, right? The prime minister is not similar to what we will look at as a vice president, because the prime minister of France is, again, nowhere close to what the vice president of the United States is. Their roles and powers are fundamentally different because France has a semi-presidential system with both a president and a prime minister, whereas the U.S., we have a presidential system with only a president and a vice president. Now, the primary role of the prime minister is head of the government, directing the nation's domestic policy and managing day-to-day government activities. That is actually the job of the prime minister of France versus the president. Now, when it comes to the vice president of these United States, that position is basically a standby successor to the president with very limited constitutional power. Just like if the president falls, we have another president stand up. That's pretty much it. But the prime minister actually, is head of the government body, and he looks to day-to-day operation and managing domestic policies, etc. And then the president of France, he's more internationally handling things internationally. But again, he's kind of like a governor in France, if that sums it up for you guys, okay? Now, I'm proud of India right now, ladies and gentlemen, because India is making a very bold play to lure back its brightest minds after the U.S. chaotic H-1B visa policy sent shockwaves through the sector. Now, from generous tax breaks to research grants and stand-up incubator, India is trying to turn a brain drain into a brain gain. Because at first, America was recruiting all the top talent out of India. So they were draining the swamp, or so to speak, they were draining all India's top talent. I've been speaking on this probably for the past month or so. But now they're trying to give tax breaks. They're trying to give incentives to bring a lot of these very intelligent people back to start to build up India. Again, bravo. Bravo, because if this truly occurs and a lot of these people start to go back to India, or they stop the top minds that are being developed right now from coming to America or the Western powers, they will start to build up India. But here's what I believe, and I've read that a lot of the experts are saying this as well. They said that it won't be easy, and I don't believe it won't be easy. I believe that it won't be easy because many workers have already built lives abroad, right here in America, right here in the Western powers, right? And India still struggles with bureaucracy, corruption, wages, and infrastructure. I mean, in America, we have corruption as well, but it is the sort of corruption where you can still be prosperous and live a good life, especially in these tech jobs. So again, it's not as bad as India. Again, that's what the reports are stating. Of course, America has a much better infrastructure when it comes to water and electricity. But this is about more than jobs. It's about whether India can finally compete with Silicon Valley on its own terms. And the way that India can go about doing this, ladies and gentlemen, is basically the things that a lot of Indians have come over here to love and enjoy about America. You have to build that right in India. You have to build up your infrastructure. You have to build up your security forces so people feel safe. And all these great minds, you have to pay them more than a livable wage to come back to India and live a great life amongst their own people. You have to incentivize these people, and you have to make sure that they feel secure, and you have to make sure the infrastructure is intact, and you have to make sure they feel safe, because they come to America, even though we have all the mass shootings and all the gangs and bikers and all the drugs, this, that, and the other. Why do you believe that Indians still are coming to America? Because they're getting paid $150,000 a year, $250,000 a year. And they're making a lot of our tech giants they're even larger than what they are. They're dealing in AI and software coding, computer hardware and software. Now, not all of them in tech, but a great majority of them are in tech. So you have to build an infrastructure around some of the norms that we have in America, and you don't have to Americanize it. It can be India, but on a very high level. I would love to see how the top 10% of Indians live in India, how their houses look. You will have to build that on a very large scale in, pristine neighborhoods and communities in India. And so these people that America has definitely drained India of can be brought back. Why am I for this? Why, wait. If we stop recruiting the top talent out of all of these Asian countries, out of all these, and even Africa to a certain degree, if America stops doing that, then America fall behind. Are you for that, Blacklogic? This is about empowering, infusing, and really upgrading America's educational system, getting trades back in schools, curtailing the curriculum of American high schools, public high schools, not just private, public high schools and colleges, where we're recruiting all of the top talent out of all of these other countries from around the world to come and write AI coding software. All the things that's dealing around computers and coding and Raspberry, you name Linux, all these coding software, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, if you work for a Fortune 500 company, I promise you that at least a third of your IT office are Indians. That is because America and American businessmen and corporations have been recruiting heavily out of India. How does that hurt Americans? It hurt us because it de-incentivized us to go get these tech jobs. And if we do go get these tech jobs, we're now competing against another demographic of people from the ages. Now, granted, I went to the library, my son and I, about, I want to say 2 months ago. And we were trying to donate books, but they don't take, at this library, they don't take any donations of books, because he had these series of all these Black comic books, right? He had these series, I think they were called The Sands of Time or something like that. But nonetheless, we're trying to donate them. And they're like, oh, we don't take any donations. We were like, what? You don't take donations of book? They're like, no. They gave us some sort of reason. We're like, okay. So we started to look around the library. So we looked around the library. We saw a lady like, hey, we have, these comic books. We gave her the comic books. And then we saw some chess games going on. Now, what was ironic about this, and it wasn't a chess tournament, it was like being taught chess. I think 9 out of the 10 children that we were saying being taught chess were Indian. And it was one Chinese kid, I believe. And it was a couple of old white men teaching, and they were volunteers, by the way, teaching these Indian children how to play chess. Now, granted, they already knew how the pieces move, but they were more focusing on strategy. The oldest person I saw being learned from Indian descent, being taught how to play chess, they were around 9 years of age, and the youngest was around 5. They weren't even big enough to sit in the chair. They had to go into a squat, but nonetheless, they were playing. So me and my son, we sat down like, we know how to play chess, so we started playing chess. But at the same time, we were low key, sniping eyes. Is like, this astonished that at 5 years of age, they're being taught and actually know how to play chess. Now, the 5-year-old, he had made a move. He said, the guy was like, you might not want to make that move because of this, that, and the other. And the Indian child's like, oh, okay. And put the chess back and then made another move. And then he's like, that's a good move. So I want you guys just to picture how far American children are behind. Now, my son is 14. I taught him how to chess. I taught him how to play chess maybe about 5 years ago. But does he play chess every day? No. He understands the concept. He knows how the pieces move. And now we're working on strategies because, again, learning how to play chess at a very early age can develop the mind in ways you have no idea. Because it's teaching these children, it's teaching our kids how to think 5, 6, 7 moves ahead when it comes to anything in life. Okay, we're talking about cause and effect here. But again, I just want you guys to think about how other cultures are really investing in their children and how they're not just behind video games and watching TV. They're actually investing in the advancement, not just technological, but up here, how to think and how to move 5 to 10 steps ahead. Now, and I told my son this, I said, if you just learn how to play chess, most people don't think no more than 2 to 3 steps ahead. You start to become very good when you can start to think 5 steps ahead. Then I said chess masters, they think around 10 steps ahead. And this is my opinion. Now, when it comes to chess, I'll let the cat out the bag, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying I'm some great mind, that I'm really good in chess. I can go to some sort of world tournament. No, I can think about 5 steps ahead. When I'm thinking about the strategy, how I'm gonna set somebody up, how may I sacrifice my queen or my bishop or rook so I can then take or corner your king or something like that. Yeah, I can think about 5 steps ahead. That's the best I'm gonna give you. If I move my bishop here in D3 and the different positions on the chessboard, then you're going to do the only options you have this, or you're going to lose this piece. Now, when you have somebody on your same level, that is when the game becomes difficult. Like my son, he's only thinking like 1 or 2 steps ahead. I beat him every time. And then sometimes to encourage him to keep playing, I have to lose. And that's my saving grace, okay? But nonetheless, I just wanted you guys to know that this is a good thing for America, because if countries stop sending all their top talent, America will have to invest in American children. Finally, we have all these do-nothing classes, right? Once you get past English and math and science, what else is there? What else is there? It should, at this point in time in life, ladies and gentlemen, we should prepare the next generation for computer engineers, software engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, anything dealing around creating and inventing and innovating. That is where we should be pointing the next generation. We need to stop all the sociology and social work, and we have enough therapists, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you may say, no, we have a lot of mental issues in America. Ladies and gentlemen, we have enough therapists, okay? We have enough psychiatrists, okay? That's just my point, but we need more people in the tech field, because I am happy that countries are now seeing America for what it really is. We're going to poach your top talent, and then when we're done with them, we're going to send them all back. Now, granted, we're going to allow a lot of them to stay, because we're talking about 10, 20, 30 years that a lot of these people have been here. And this has nothing to do with Indians. Okay, this has to do with any country that America has recruited the top talent and has pushed American citizens at the bottom, because now the competition is a lot bigger. Not only do you have to compete with Americans, you have to compete with Indians, you have to compete with Africans, you have to compete with people from Asia, Japan, China, you have to compete with all these other people. But when you go to these other countries like India, when you go to China, Japan, Korea, the majority of their population are their own countrymen and women. Majority, when you go to Japan, there's a lot of technological advancement right there in the public. They have a lot of this technology. This is like an advanced society. When you go to China, it's the same thing. When you go to Korea, it's the same thing. Why? Because they invest in their school system. And when I was in Korea, because I lived in Korea for 4 years, when I was in the military, children in Korea basically go to school all day, all year long. And that is why they are more intelligent than American children. It's not because they're naturally more intelligent. It's because they are in school all day long. Take, for instance, right, your child leaves the house anywhere between 6 to 8 o'clock to go to school. And depending on their grade, they come back home anywhere from between 2 and 4 o'clock, unless they're in some sort of extracurricular activity and or sport, right? Let's take, for instance, you take that same timeline and you take it to Korea. When they come home, they may have a small break, but then they may have an at-home tutor, or they go to night school for another 2 to 3 hours to work on things that they're probably not good in. They are in school literally all day and all year long. That is why they are, again, smarter. It's not because they are inherently smarter. It's because of their culture. Their culture is intelligence. Their culture is school. Their culture is learning. So when they come to America, they blow past any applicant that be trying to go up for the same job. They just have more information because it's been embedded in them from a very young age. That is where America needs to go. We're competing against very intelligent people. And the only way we can compete with them, it has to start at home. Then it has to start in our school. Because people are talking about homeschool, homeschool, homeschool. Well, if you want to live a good life in America, it's not cheap. And both parents in America, majority of the time, work. My wife and I work in order to provide a good life for our child. Our child goes to public school, a really good public school, no less. But that doesn't mean that the curriculum of the schools need to change. So if you're going to dismantle the Department of Education on a federal level and not really have oversights of the states, that's fine. But on a state level, on a local level, on a community level, we need to be at these school boards, ladies and gentlemen, and telling them, hey, you guys need to change this curriculum. We need 2 or 3 computer labs. You guys need to teach coding, engineering, because a lot of our kids would be interested in it if it was available at a public level. Because I think 2 or 3 years ago, we had to send our we had to send our son to iCode. iCode is this basically a business where teach young children how to code. I think he was working on Raspberry. He wrote some really small software program. But all of the other students were of what descent? Asian. There was, I believe, 2 other white kids, my son, and the rest of them was Asian. And out of the 8 Asian kids, 5 of them were Indian. And again, all of these children were under the age of 12. Okay. So again, I wanted to just point out and drive that home. I know I kind of stayed long on that particular story, but it needs to be said, ladies and gentlemen, America needs to change. And I'm glad that other countries are standing up for themselves and want to make their countries better, because at first, India seemed as though they had no problem allowing their top talent come to America, but now they threw on that $100,000 visa fee. Now let's keep a lot of our top talent here. I wonder if a lot of the incentivized or the benefits that the Indian government was receiving from America, I wonder if that stopped as well. And this is the reason why they're changing their tune. Okay, that's what I'm thinking about. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware that Rite Aid, that once was like the top third pharmaceutical company in America, basically a pillar of the drug chain stores in America, has officially closed all its locations after a bruising bankruptcy fight. And the company fall marks one of the largest retail collapses since the pandemic, leaving thousands jobless in communities without pharmacies. People were telling me how when President Trump came into office that a lot of people wages have increased. What wages increases if people are losing their jobs? American businesses are in shambles, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not blaming the president for that, but he was talking about that wages are higher than they have ever been before. Yeah, wages are high because inflation is high. Wages are high because a lot of these other jobs are going out of business. I know that's kind of contradictory, but I mean, he said this on the United Nations talk. I just don't understand it. Because it's also a sign of a deeper crisis in American retail. Because as Amazon, Walmart, and Rite and prescription costs squeeze out traditional chains, because that's why a lot of these pharmaceutical companies, not pharmaceutical companies, but those who were fulfilling prescriptions like a Rite Aid and also a semi-convenience store, why a lot of them are going out of business is because Amazon and Walmart. And don't forget, there's thousands of people losing their jobs because Rite Aid was nationwide. Now, Rite Aid demise isn't just about bad business, it's about the shifting face of healthcare in Main Street America. Now, not just Rite Aid. I'm going to make sure you guys are aware of all these particular stores. Joann, I never really shopped there, but nonetheless, GameStop. Now, we know GameStop was eventually going to go out of business due to its stock price fluctuating and people pumping and dumping behind it. So, and everything now is digitized. You don't really need to go to GameStop to buy a game. You can buy it off of Amazon or buy it off of Walmart or even Best Buy and have it be shipped right to your home, or you can download it digitally. Okay, so we kind of knew that. Party City, there was a Party City right in my area here that went, and I think it got replaced by some store that was selling cowboy boots or something like that. But Party City, yeah, they're going out of business. Joann's, okay. Big Lots, there was a Big Lots that stopped in my area, and I used to like Big Lots. For people who can't really afford your Ashley's furniture or your very expensive furniture, Big Lots was a good store to go to. It always had some cool things that you can buy really cheap, a $500 couch, maybe $350, a $250 mattress. But now Big Lots is closing 480 stores. Walgreens, ladies and gentlemen, it says that Walgreens said is on track to close 450 locations through the end of 2025. This is America's great fall. We have staples like Walgreens going out of business. Family Dollar, 370 doors. You got Family Dollar, you got the Dollar Store, you got Dollar General, but they're closing 370 locations, ladies and gentlemen. Starbucks. Oh, I know a lot of you are going to be up in a hoopla behind this. You guys are going to be kicking the stump down the street. It says Starbucks said Thursday they plan to close about 1% of its 11,453 corporately owned stores. Okay, so everybody is in a reduction. And a lot of people are going to say good, because now traditionally America mom and pop stores may be coming back to replace a lot of these juggernauts that have taken over their businesses. Macy's is closing 66 stores across 22 states. Kroger. Now, Kroger, I've been watching the evaporation of Kroger for the past 3 years in my area. We used to have within a 10-mile range. We used to have like 5 or 6 Krogers. They're now being replaced by HEB. They're now being replaced by HEB. I wonder if they said anything according to the store about HEB. Kohl's is closing 27 stores. I know a lot of you guys like to shop at Kohl's. They got some cool stuff, some nice bedding, some nice clothing items. Oh, JCPenney is closing 8 stores. The retailer also announced that 120 of the stores were going up for sale. So they're closing 8 and trying to sell 120 JCPenney's. Okay, and that seems to be the end of that. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, that's what basically happened over the weekend. It's only Monday, so I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to keep you guys updated right here on Blacklogic. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next.